Hello, my name's Heather. I work here at the nursery at RHS Hyde Hall and I do quite a lot of the propagation, as you can see from the back here. What I'm going to be talking to you about today is overwintering chillies. So why do we actually overwinter chillies? Well, as you can see from this plant here, it is still in flower and it is actually producing nice amounts of fruit. But as the light levels start to reduce, and that's usually happening around about now, at the end of October, the leaves are starting to yellow, and in another couple of 3 weeks, with the light levels really closing down, this plant will lose quite a lot of its leaves. It comes from Central and South America, so it is used to a certain amount of light. And in this northern altitude of Britain, of course, it's not getting enough light. So what we can do is put it into hibernation for the winter so that next year we'll have an earlier start. So why do this? Well, some chillies take quite a lot of time to germinate, especially the ones like the habaneros. They can be 5-6 weeks to germinate. So if we can overwinter these plants, we will actually get a head start on our chilli production next year, and hopefully you'll get a bigger yield as well. So I'll talk about this particular chilli first. It's a capsicum annuum. Sounds a bit complicated, still is a perennial. It has a really nice crop of chillies on it still. So the first thing we've got to do is, I'm afraid, remove the chillies. If you overwinter a chilli with the fruit still on, it doesn't do so well. You have to take all the chillies off. It's about preserving the structure, the root ball, and the stems to get through the winter. So we've got a lovely specimen here. First of all, what I'm going to do is take off the 4 canes that are holding it up. What will probably happen is that it will actually fall apart, but as we cut back, it will hopefully spring back up. There we go. That one's off. Wow, they really are lax. You really do need to stake them well. So here we have the basic framework. So what I'm basically going to do is actually start by cutting this particular chilli down by half. What we're going to try and find are these particular joints here. So as you can see, there is a V shape on the break of this stem. At that particular point there is where the next fruiting is going to happen. So it's nice to preserve these particular joints in the chilli because that's where you're going to start to get the first chillies for next year. So what I need to do is cut down to a good pair of leaves just above. Looks a bit drastic, but as the season goes by, these chillies will actually defoliate anyway. And as we move around the plant, still trying to preserve the breaks. I'm usually cutting about 1 good pair of leaves above the break in the stem. And the reason for doing that is the energy in that stem will be hopefully enough to promote a new flowering shoot for next year. If we cut right down to the base, there may not be enough energy in that leaf node to actually produce a flowering shoot. So this gives it a bit more of a fighting chance. Again, all of the leaves will actually fall off of this in the next couple of 3 weeks, so you will just be left with a bare framework of stem. So as you can see, as I'm working my way around the plant, you can just see how much of the stem and leaves are actually coming off, which is around about half. And again, if you have any fruiting stems, these need to come off. Again, we don't need any fruit left over on the plant. And if we have any other foliage at the base, again, what I will try and do is cut back, probably leaving 2 leaf joints to leave a good structure. So that looks pretty drastic. I won't be wasting any of these fruits because they're actually going to be really tasty right the way through the winter. But this is basically the structure that we have left. And as I said to you before, in another couple of weeks, this will just be stems. There won't be any leaves left on this particular plant. As you can see, now that the actual fruit has been taken off of it, it is fairly sturdy, and I wouldn't actually need to restake this particular plant. So now I've got it into this state. This can go back to where it was from. It could go back to a very nice sunny windowsill. It could go back to a conservatory. If it goes back to a greenhouse, it really does need to be heated so that it doesn't fall below 7 degrees. And as the winter progresses, we're going to be watering probably around about once a fortnight. So the water levels are going to drop down. Because the leaves have fallen off, there won't be any transpiration of water loss, so therefore we can reduce watering. I'm going to leave it in the same pot as well, but around about February or March, you'll start to notice, especially on the leaf nodes, the leaf joints, you will start to see new buds breaking. And this is the key to let you know that the plant needs to be potted up. I will pot it up. This is a 3-litre pot. It needs to be potted up into the next size, around about 5 litres. It needs new compost, and most importantly of all, it's going to need restaking. It won't be long at all, from around about March to April, before this starts to grow and produce this sort of foliage again for next year's growth. One thing to mention when you're overwintering a chilli is, although you have a nice framework at the moment, it's quite natural for these stems to actually die back. You can always spot when they've died back because they change colour. They won't be green anymore. That's quite natural. That happens all the time. All you have to do is make sure that you cut below where it's died back into good green growth again, and it will reshoot back from there. But don't worry if it defoliates, and don't worry if you have any stems that die back. So as you can see from here, we have a mixture of fruit, ripe and unripe. What you can do is put these all in a nice warm place and they will all ripen together. Once they're ripened, you can then dry them, or like I do, I actually freeze them. And what I do is I tend to chop them up and I put them into little freezer bags and freeze them once they're all ready. I don't mind a mixture of red and green anyway. I think the green has a lot more spice and it gives a lot more piquancy, especially to things like green Thai chilli. I'd like to talk a little bit more about Capsicum chinensis. This is a really interesting chilli variety. It can overwinter in your house without having to be cut down. You can treat it like a houseplant. It comes from the Caribbean and it comes from Central America, so it's used to quite a lot of heat. It likes a lot of humidity as well, so it's a really good plant to grow in the kitchen, or if you've got a shower in the bathroom, you can put it in there. It's also a chilli that doesn't require such high light levels. It's used to being grown under a canopy in a rainforest, so it can actually live quite happily in your house. It is what's called phytotropic, so it will need turning to make sure that it doesn't go lopsided and go towards the sun. And the way you can put more humidity around the plant is that you can put it onto a saucer filled with gravel and then fill the saucer full of water, and that will evaporate and create a nice humidity bubble around the chilli. So we don't have to overwinter chillies. Some of the easiest ways to grow chillies is to actually buy them, and you can have them as a plant and they will actually produce fruit for you quite quickly. If you do want to go down the route of sowing seeds, this is how I grow them, it's around about February that you want to start them off. They do need a long growing season. With annuums, they only take about 7 days to germinate. But as I say, with some of the chinense types, the habanero types, they can take 5 to 6 weeks. So you can see the benefits of actually starting to overwinter them. We're quite lucky here. We have an RHS shop, and you can also buy your seeds and your plants here when you visit the gardens.